Once upon a time, in a grand mansion that seemed to touch the skies, lived a wealthy man who had everything a person could desire: gold, diamonds, land, and businesses that stretched across the country. Yet, for all his power and fortune, the millionaire carried a pain that wealth could never heal. His only son, a boy of 12, had never spoken a single word since birth. Doctors from the most renowned hospitals were called, specialists flew in from foreign lands, priests and healers were summoned, but none of them succeeded. The boy's lips would part as if to speak, but no sound ever escaped. This silence hung over the mansion like a curse, stealing the joy from the father's heart. The millionaire loved his son deeply. Every time he saw the boy struggling to form words, a pang of helplessness pierced him. Despite his riches, he could not buy his son a voice. His despair turned into desperation until one evening, in a gathering of friends and acquaintances, he made an unusual declaration. Standing tall, with a solemn expression, he said, "Whoever makes my son speak will marry me. If it is a woman, she shall become my wife. If it is a man, he shall inherit half of my fortune." The room gasped at such words. Everyone knew the millionaire could have chosen any bride, any alliance, but his pain had made him willing to risk everything for the sake of his son's voice. Soon, word of his promise spread like wildfire. Wealthy women, noble families, and even ordinary folk began arriving at the mansion, each claiming they had a way to make the boy speak. Some tried to make him laugh with clowns and jesters. Others scared him with loud noises, hoping shock would force his voice out. Priests recited chants, singers sang lullabies, and healers offered potions, but nothing worked. The boy would simply stare with wide eyes, his lips trembling but soundless. The millionaire's heart sank deeper with every failed attempt. He began to lose hope, but the promise still stood. He swore on his fortune and his name that he would fulfill it if anyone succeeded. Among the many people who worked in his mansion was a maid. She was young, humble, and poor, working tirelessly to earn bread for her family. Unlike others, she never tried to attract the millionaire's attention. She did her work quietly, cleaning floors, polishing furniture, and tending to the garden when needed. But she often noticed the lonely boy sitting by the window, staring out at the world with silent eyes. While others saw him as a challenge, she saw him as a child in need of love. One afternoon, while the grand halls echoed with the chatter of yet another failed healer, the maid found the boy in the garden. He was watching butterflies flutter over the flowers. She approached him gently, not with the air of someone trying to fix him, but with kindness. Sitting beside him, she whispered softly, "Do you like them?" The boy turned his head, his eyes wide. He didn't respond, but his lips curved faintly, almost like a smile. That was the first time anyone had seen such warmth on his face. Day after day, the maid began to spend a little more time with him. She never pressured him to speak. Instead, she told him stories, simple tales of animals, of hard-working people, of kindness and hope. Sometimes she would sing songs while doing her chores, and the boy would listen silently. Other times she drew little shapes in the sand, and he copied them with his tiny hands. Slowly, a bond formed. The millionaire noticed this unusual connection. Though skeptical, he allowed it to continue, for it was the first time his son seemed truly alive. The boy began laughing softly, not with words, but with expressions that brightened the mansion. The maid's presence brought a change no doctor or priest had managed. Then, one fateful evening, the millionaire hosted yet another gathering of nobles. He was weary of disappointment, but his promise had bound him. The boy, as always, sat quietly by his side. The maid, carrying a tray of drinks, noticed the boy's restless eyes darting across the room. Something seemed to trouble him. She quietly knelt beside him and whispered, "Don't be afraid. I'm here." The boy's eyes locked onto hers. For a moment, the room disappeared. Then, with trembling lips and a shaky breath, he whispered his very first word, "Mama." The hall fell silent. Glasses froze midair. The millionaire dropped his cup, his eyes widening in disbelief. His son had spoken clear, fragile, but unmistakably real. Tears filled his eyes as he embraced the boy, unable to contain his joy. My son can speak," he shouted, his voice breaking with overwhelming relief. All eyes turned to the maid, for it was her presence that had unlocked the boy's voice. The millionaire remembered his vow, a promise spoken from the depths of his despair: "Whoever makes my son speak will marry me." And so, in front of everyone, he declared, "It was she, the maid. She has done what none of you could. She shall be my wife." Gasps echoed in the hall. Nobles whispered in shock. How could a humble maid marry a millionaire? Many tried to protest, claiming it was a disgrace, but the millionaire silenced them with a single glance. "I gave my word," he said firmly. "And today, that word becomes my honor." The maid, however, was overwhelmed. She never sought wealth, nor did she dream of marrying a man of such status. Tears filled her eyes as she said softly, "Sir, I only wish to help your son. I never thought of reward." But the millionaire, holding his son close, replied, "It is not wealth I offer you, it is gratitude, respect, and a place beside us. You brought life to my child's world, and in doing so, you brought life back to mine." Days turned into weeks, and the mansion that once echoed with silence now rang with laughter. The boy, encouraged by the maid's gentle care, began learning more words, slowly but steadily. The millionaire, true to his promise, married her, not as a symbol of obligation, but as a recognition of love and sacrifice. She treated the boy as her own child, nurturing him with patience and devotion. The townsfolk, once doubtful, came to admire her. They realized that true nobility lies not in riches but in compassion. The millionaire himself changed. No longer was he a man consumed by wealth and status, he became a husband and a father who valued love above all else. The story of the maid who made the millionaire's son speak spread far and wide, inspiring countless hearts. It became a tale whispered in villages, written in newspapers, and remembered as proof that kindness can achieve what power cannot. In the end, it wasn't wealth, fame, or science that gave the boy his voice. It was love, the simplest, most powerful force in the world. And the maid, once invisible among the grand halls of the mansion, became the very soul of its happiness. For some, this was just a story of a vow fulfilled. But for those who truly understood, it was a reminder that miracles do not always come from grand gestures. Sometimes, they are born from quiet kindness, from patience, from a heart that sees beyond silence. And so, the mansion that once stood as a symbol of riches became a home filled with warmth. The millionaire, his son, and the woman who brought them both back to life lived not just as a family, but as a testament to the power of love. Their story reminded the world that even the most broken hearts can be healed, not by wealth, but by compassion. The boy, who once lived in silence, grew into a man whose voice carried strength and hope, and every time he spoke, it was as if the whole world listened, not because of who he was, but because of the miracle that love had made possible. And whenever he looked at his mother, the maid who became his father's wife, he would smile, remembering that his very first word had been for her. That word, simple yet eternal, changed not only his life but the lives of everyone who heard the story, "Mama."